Hey guys, Ash Fimon here, and a few years ago I applied for a lot of my paperwork in Jamaica, and since then I get inquiries from relatives and acquaintances that pretty much just ask me about my process and what are some things they needed to know as well. So I figured if they had questions, there are probably other people out there in the diaspora that had questions too. So I figured I kind of collate all of my experience together into this mini web series, and today this is video number 1 where we're talking all about the TRN. I have my notes here, so I'm not forgetting any important information. So the TRN stands for Taxpayer Registration Number. It's a 9-digit number uniquely made for you. So in the States, and I'm going to refer to a lot of things in America just because simply that's where I'm from, that's where I live. So in the States, we have the Social Security number, most commonly shortened to Social or SSN. Now, there are very clear differences between the TRN and the SSN, but they also do have a lot of similarities. Now, the reason why you would need a TRN is if you plan to conduct any kind of business in Jamaica, you need one. So even if you don't plan to open up like a physical brick and mortar like shop or store, you would still need it for the most common of reasons. So if you plan to send or receive money from like a MoneyGram or Western Union, you're applying for a job in Jamaica, applying for a school in Jamaica, trying to get a driver's license, trying to open up a bank account, or simply clearing a barrel at the wharf, all those various reasons are why you would need one. So even if you dotted your I's and crossed your T's, if you don't have a TRN, you're not going to get very far. So it's pretty much an essential document. Now, anybody can apply for a TRN, and this is a good example of a clear difference between a TRN and an SSN. So anybody can apply for a TRN. You don't have to physically be Jamaican. You don't have to be a part of the diaspora or anything of that nature. You don't even have to be Jamaican by insertion. However, if you are under 18 or you know someone under 18, they too can apply for the TRN. They would just have to submit a little bit more documentation. I think get a parent or guardian signature because they are a minor. But for more information on that, you can obviously go to Taj's website to get more info. Now, the TRN is good for forever. It's one of those documents that simply do not expire. So the only time that you would need to update your record is if you change your name or your information has changed. So if you got married, divorced, or you simply change your name because your name can no longer hold you, that is a good reason on when you would need to update your record. Other than that, you are good to go. Now, there is no fee to obtain and apply for a TRN. And all you need are simply 2 things. You need a filled out application, and you can get the application either online or from any Taj location island-wide. And 2, you need a valid photo ID. Simply means you're submitting a legit ID. It's not no Bandulu ID. And it's best to either use a foreign-based license or you can use a passport. Now, some of the things that they're going to be looking for, which a lot of photo IDs simply have, is your photo, your name, your birthday. Obviously, it cannot be expired. And your signature on your ID must match your signature on your application. Now, which brings us to how do you apply? So you're probably wondering, can you apply online? Now, you sort of can, but Taj doesn't have like a fully online process, not in the way we think. Because when we think of applying for something online, we simply think, okay, we're applying, we're waiting for a yay or a nay, that's it. So Taj has somewhat of an online process, but not a full online process. So Taj has something called e-services on your website. It's free to, make an account if you don't have one already. And once you're in that account, you can apply for a TRN. So you can literally go through the prompts to apply. You can even go as far as uploading a copy of your ID. But guess what? You're not going to actually receive a TRN. So in Taj's mind, they see, for example, Jane Doe. We see Jane Doe has submitted an application for a TRN, but until we receive Jane's signature and ID, Jane's not getting a TRN. So you would still have to go and physically either mail or submit your ID and signature. So that to me is not really a fully online process. So the real two ways is either you can apply in person at any TAJ location island-wide, or two, you can apply through the mail, especially if you're part of the diaspora and you live abroad. So when you apply in person, you're going to want to make note of having the physical application. And if you don't have access to a printer, you can request one at the information desk. So while you're waiting to be seen by a clerk, you can go ahead and fill it out. And it's a very relatively simple application to fill out. Then you need to actually have the physical ID with you. You cannot have it on your phone. You cannot have a photocopy from a JP. You need to have the physical ID when you are applying in person. Now, once you actually see a clerk, it takes about 20 minutes to actually receive your assignment letter. And then from there, that letter will suffice if you need to use it for anything thereafter, anything that needed proof of a TRN. Now, I was told whether you apply in person or through the mail, once they receive your application, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to then receive your TRN back. Now, when you're applying in person, if you are not there to collect it, you can always just go back whenever you're going to be back in town again to collect it, or you can have somebody, I believe, collect it on your behalf. They and you would probably have to fill out some information, but you can go to TAJ's website for more information on that. Now, I would assume a lot of you guys are abroad, you're part of the diaspora, so you would be applying through the mail. You would print out your application, which I have it here. It's like 2 sheets of paper. You're going to fill that out. You're going to make a photocopy of your ID. Now, there's no restriction on whether that needs to be in color or in black and white. And then you need to get that photocopy of your ID notarized by a notary in the country in which you reside. So you'd really be surprised that a lot of people in your like community of network are actually authorized notaries. So it could be someone at your church, someone a part of a community organization, a family friend, a neighbor, or so on. Relatives that are notaries cannot notarize your documents, especially if you have the same last name. So if you don't have access to a notary, a good place to start could be your bank. At least here in America, if there is a physical branch and you're a customer, they do notarize documents for you. So that might be a good place to check with your bank if that is the case. If not, you can simply Google search authorized notaries near me, and you can put in like your city or your zip code. From there, you're going to mail that into TAJ. Now, I'm going to leave references and links below in the description box. Now, any fees you incur on mailing that letter internationally is solely on you. Now, I did some due diligence. Here we go. I went to my local postal service and I asked, how much is it to mail this letter into Jamaica? She said they have the global stamp and it's $1.20 US to mail. I don't know how long it'll take to get there, but I also asked how much is it, what's the cheapest tracking to mail this letter to Jamaica? And I believe she said it would be like 17 or 18 US because it would have to be registered, and it may, I believe she said it may take 2 weeks. So you can go through like your local postal office. Of course, there's FedEx, DHL, UPS, or any other postal service to mail your letter, or whichever one you find, most convenient for you. Now, I suggest that you would put tracking on it simply because this is your personal information, and then you could kind of keep eyes on your letter as it's filtering through the mailing system, and then you'll know when your letter is actually delivered. Now, of course, things can get lost in the sauce whether there's tracking or no tracking, but it may just give you a sense of ease just to know where your letter is. Now, I am in South Florida, so here in the diaspora, it's a running joke that we are an extension of Jamaica because we are so close, and the vibe here feels similar to Jamaica in a lot of ways, and we're like Kingston 20 or 22. Now, we are much closer, so if you're coming from another country or another side of America or so on, the time frame or the cost may be different, because normally what factors in the cost when you're mailing something is like the size, the weight, and where it's going to, the destination. So you're going to want to keep that in mind. Now, once TAJ actually receives your letter, as I said, in 4 to 6 weeks, you should be receiving your card back in the mail. And I was told that when you apply through the mail, that they would email you with your TRN in the meantime. Now, normally any correspondence from Taj will come in like this brown envelope, and any letters or receipts from Taj will have their official stamp on it so they know like it's real. Now, if you ever had a TRN in the past, but you lost it, you misplaced it, you can actually get one back. You would have to submit a supplementary form that you can get from their website along with a valid photo ID, and then turn that into Taj to reissue you a TRN. So my TRN story was a few years ago, I was talking with a cousin. Shout out to Orinthia, and she suggested any little thing I do in Jamaica, I would need a TRN, so she suggested I get one, clearly talking from personal experience. So I did my research, I printed out the application, filled it out, and just had it sitting there for months and just told myself, okay, whenever I go back to Jamaica, I'll go ahead and apply. The following year, I went down, and I'm very much a type of person, I try to kill multiple birds with one stone if possible. Excuse me. So when I was there, I went to Constant Spring and I applied. I had to pick a number off the wall, and this image on the screen was not from that time. That was from another time, but this is just an example. And I had to sit and wait for my number to be called. Eventually it was called, went to the counter, handed the clerk, filled the application, and my ID. Now, again, you don't have to use a Jamaican passport or have any affiliations with Jamaica, but I wanted to use my passport just so everything would kind of sync up. She filled out some stuff on the application, I believe, made a photocopy of my ID, and then told me to sit down and wait for my name to be called. Shortly after, my name was called, and then she handed me my assignment letter, and then I was good to go. Now, I don't remember asking her at the time, when will my card be ready? But I remember doing research, and then I was seeing different things. They're not printing. It's going to take 6 months. And I think I remember even reading a Gleaner article that says Taj was stopping printing cards simply because they were trying to save money, because they figured it was cheaper to just do printing out the letter, and then that people would just have their cards just sitting there. They had cards in a bundle because people weren't coming back to pick it back up. Now, I know at least 3 people that have applied for their TRN in Jamaica, and in conversations, they had no idea that they were supposed to go back and pick it up. Now, I don't know if they just simply forgot, or somewhere in the application process, Taj is forgetting to let these people know that, hey, you need to come back and pick it up. So I don't know whichever one of the two is. Now, I eventually went back. After that trip, I went back to Jamaica 8 months later. I was there back at Constant Spring Taj, handling some other business, and I did ask if my TRN was ready, and it was, and she handed me my card. So it's small, like the size of a license or a credit card, and she simply gave it to me, and this came in a clear plastic to preserve the life of the card. Now, normally what I do, I store it in my passport like this, and then I put it in my safe. So anytime I am going back to Jamaica, I kind of like walk with it, just in case if I need it. And even if I don't need it, I think it's still best to have it and not need it than you need it and you don't have it, because then I'd have to go back through the tax office, go back to the rigmarole, and going back to the whole mess just to get back my TRN. So I always walk with it. Now, I don't walk with it on the street for obvious reasons, but I have it, so in the event I do need it, I'll be good to go. Now, I do hope all this information has been helpful to you in some way. Please, if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, or share. If you have any questions, you can leave that down below. And of course, if you know anybody that will find this video useful or helpful, please do share the wealth. Don't be stingy. Share the wealth. Share the knowledge. I would greatly appreciate it. As always, you can link up with me online everywhere at Ashfimon. Until next time, thank you for tuning in and have a good day.